Well, today we're going to do something we've never done before. We're going to explore what different paint consistencies do to your actual landscape painting. And we'll see, does it actually matter to have like the perfect paint, or will any paint that you use be okay? We're going to find out today, and I'll let you see kind of side by side so you can make your own choice. Should be interesting. If you're looking forward to seeing this, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more painting videos. All right, so we've got the canvas divided up into 3 pieces here. Now I'm going to work from left to right with my thin paint, my regular paint, and then my thick paint. Now I will say, for this experiment, this is all just my normal paint, which you can find on the website. But what I've done is I've thinned it down with oil, a little bit of oil. So each of my colors have been thinned maybe to like half, even more. So we're talking a very runny paint. You know, we're kind of going a little bit on the extremes, so you can see, you know, subtle differences. It's not going to make that much of a difference, but we're going to the extremes, thinking, okay, wow, a thin paint that does this, a really thick paint does that. It'll be very interesting. Okay, so I've already went ahead and put clear gel. You can't see it because it's clear. I put a little clear gel right on this side, and it just helps kind of make it like a regular painting. I'm going to put a little bit of white down, clear gel and white. That white's thinner than normal. Again, these are my normal paints. I went ahead and I thinned them down like crazy. See that? Okay, so now we've got that done. I'm gonna paint the same thing on each section of the canvas. This is my normal canvas. All right, little blue and white. I'm gonna do just a sky. When you're working with paint this thin, it takes only 1 or 2 strokes. Okay, now we're gonna do a tree and a rock, and maybe a little grass. So for the tree, I've got my filbert brush. I'm gonna take some brown and black, and we'll kind of speed through some of this. You know, I won't show you every little tiny bit of how to paint. This isn't how to paint a tree. This is look at how the difference is with the different consistency of paint. We'll do a regular kind of leafy tree. So I've got some green, some blue, yellow. You know, kind of a worn out, wow, now we're starting to get in. Now we're starting to get into some issues. Oh, yeah. Now you may be saying, well, I don't want to use the filbert brush. Well, you can use something else, and I'm going to show you that here in a minute. We'll get some of that grass in there as well. You see how it's mixing? I'm going to take a 1-inch brush. What would happen if you used a 1-inch brush? And so you're like, oh, well, I don't want to use a filbert brush. I want to use a 1-inch brush. You get the same kind of a leaf effect. Wow, there you go. Kind of seems to work better. So I'm going to say that, you know, your filbert brushes are not going to be any good for the paint being this thin, but something like a 1-inch brush is working a little better. It's because it's quite a bit longer. See how long it is? And it's softer, so much softer. So we have a basic outline in. This is where it's going to get exciting. Highlight. So here's some white and some yellow. Some sap green. Do you think we can highlight? Do you think we have any hope of highlighting this? Well, the light's going to come across like this today. There you go. It's not coming off too bad, is it? A little muddy here and there, but not bad. I was thinking it was going to be quite a bit worse, actually. I feel like I'm right on the edge of disaster. But the actual look isn't bad at all. Kind of clumpy, though. I think that the 1-inch brush works better when it's this thin. That's not bad. Now let's paint this in our grass highlights. So we're going to take some white, some yellow, green. Okay, that works. That seems to be working. Can thinner paint seem to work? Yeah, well, now we're getting kind of muddy. It works to a point, then it gets muddy quickly. I think that's the takeaway from this. It works. You can thin your paint down like crazy and it will work. It's not super muddy. I was expecting it to be a lot more muddy. It's not. Having it this thin is a little, even right here, is a little out of control. See if I can highlight. I think I can. Everything else has worked okay. We finally kind of worked our way into something that we're struggling with. Oh, I have to glop it on so thick. Okay, we're starting to fall apart a little bit here. It was going well, but this is, again, the concept of when your paint's too thin, you're right on the edge of mixing mud at all times. It's finally kind of starting to not work anymore, but we got further than I thought we would yet. Yeah, it's getting too thin now, but good test. Good test. This is why you don't use paint this thin. So yeah, paint consistency matters, at least on this one. If you have your paint too thin, you're gonna struggle. It's gonna be too chunky, you're gonna mix mud. Can't blend when it's this thin. It's too sharp, everything's too sharp. See that? See how nothing is blending, everything's too sharp. And when it does blend, it becomes muddy and gray. Yeah, that's what's going on. But hey, we're learning. I'm learning. I have never messed around with paint this thin trying to do a landscape like this. So, good to know. All right, I put just a little bit of the same clear gel and white, and that's just standard clear gel and white to get us kind of to a point where we normally would be. Now, I've got my regular paint. This is the paint I use on every video and on every painting I've done for the last many years. I don't even know. Same exact paint. So this should go very smoothly. If we mess this up, this is on me. There we go. Already you can see the brilliance in the color. Oh, look at that. I'm trying not to go outside my lines. So anyway, but look at the difference of color. Now, I will say this. If you tried to paint, we didn't get around to painting clouds today. And if you guys enjoy this video, we'll do a follow-up video to this sometime where we do something else, clouds or skies, you know, with these different paint consistencies. If you're interested, if you're not, that's okay too. But just look at the difference in vividness of the color. Look at how pretty that is. The vibrancy. Oh, yes, that works. What I was going to say is if we wanted to paint clouds over the first sky, I bet you it would have been too mushy. You would have had just blue clouds instead of white clouds. But anyway, that's not the point. There you go. So again, this is my standard paint mix that I always use. All right, filbert brush. I'm going to do my best to repeat the process the same way. There we go. See, it's actually already a little tiny bit slower. You'll notice that the thinner your paint, the faster it spreads. That's pretty common sense, but something to think about. There you go. So I'm gonna again continue. I'll put in a lot of my foliage here with my filbert brush. I'll put in some with the 1-inch brush just to keep everything consistent, you know. Now let's get in here and we'll crunch on a little foliage. Now you'll notice that these, as I do this, less happens. You see that? That's one thing I'm noticing right now, and I'm just mentioning these things as I notice them. Less is happening as I push down this brush. See, over here we just got like wham, 1,000 leaves all at once. Here it's a little more subtle. See that? And I kind of have to keep pushing in the same area. Well, that has to do with the the paint. It's not thin. It's not just coming off the brush the moment I touch it. I actually have to work to get it off, because it's thicker. It's interesting. Of course, that really comes in handy when you're trying not to mix mud. You see a little dark there. I'll put a little dark here. Okay, so already I can just tell you, and this should be no surprise because I work with these paints all the time, but this is very easy to make changes. You know, hey, I want it dark here. Wham, dark there. Super easy. No mud. I could go over this over and over and over and over again. I would not mix mud. There, because it's just the perfect consistency for this. And again, this is all subjective. This is if you're painting a landscape all in one day without letting it dry. If you're doing a different style of painting, this information really does not apply to you at all. So just know that. So now we got our light colors for, there we go, for highlight. Whoosh that brush in. Let's see what the difference is. Oh, wow, look at the difference. We're more under control. I see that. Slower, a little slower. I think it was actually faster over there. What does the different paint consistency really do? What does it really do? We know what we think it does, but have you ever tried this? As I know I haven't. I've tried different paints before, but I've never tried different consistencies of the same paint side by side. So one thing I've learned here, I'll just say this. You can paint with whatever you've got, if you have to. Now, if you're just learning to paint, is that a good idea? Of course not, because you're already learning, so why fight the equipment? That's not a good idea at all. Your time is the most expensive thing you're ever going to put into your painting journey. Just Just get the right kind of paint. Get the paint that's gonna work for you. But if you're ever in a pinch, you run out of paint, or you just wanna use it up, go ahead. Now, there's no hope of adding an extra highlight there, but on this one, you can actually go back and brighten up just the edges if you want to. Just go at it with another layer. Now, ordinarily, I would change to a little detail brush, and I would just add some of these extra bright highlights, because you see, when you're working with normal paint, you want to use softer brushes to finish your work, stiffer brushes to begin your work. That will give you a better result, a lot better control, and a lot less muddying of the highlights. You use, instead of thinning your paint down, I mean, some people like to thin their paint down to highlight, and that's fine if that's what you want to do, but I prefer to just change to a softer brush when you highlight, and it won't cut through the paint at all. Okay, now let's go ahead and highlight the tree trunk. So for that, I've got this 3/4 brush, and I'm just going to slide down. Oh, look, it actually sticks. Again, the 3/4 brush is softer than the filbert brush. And I put it in with the filbert brush, so it makes sense that this would stick. Okay. And a softer brush even yet, a little detail brush. Lots of paint. And look, you can create all kinds of little forms and shapes here that we couldn't do over there because of the consistency of the paint. See that? Now, right over here, we're going to paint in our rocks again. I'm going to do it with the filbert brush because I know I can. Oh, wow. And then this little guy right there. Good. Quick highlight. Good. Just a stroke or two. That's not to say you can't mix mud. You know me, I'm always wiping it off with a shop towel. I have not done that, and I'm not going to do it today because it's not necessary for something so small, but you would obviously, you're still not, no matter what paint you use, you can totally mix mud, so you want to be very careful. Finish up with my standard grass highlight. Wow, big difference. Just a few hits of the fan brush. Definitely makes lighting a little easier, so you can kind of light this area up. Layer that highlights so it looks brighter. I did do flowers, so I'm going to try to do some flowers again. What I would certainly do is just grab a little detail brush, just touch them in like so. And you can actually see that little more individual flower action going, which you really couldn't do this on the one on the left there. So I'm just finishing up with my same clear gel and white. Now I'm going to place on our blue sky with the 2-inch brush. Now this paint is thick, very, very thick. Maybe 2 or even probably about 3 times thicker than regular paint right out of the tube. The way I did that was I put it out on some cardboard and let it set for quite a long time. And the oil just absorbed right out of the paint, scooped it up, put it on the palette, and that was that. So, oh wow. That makes sense. There's less oil, more pigment, really. And so it's actually more blue. Because see, for the sake of the test today, I didn't actually add any, not like red and blue or anything, just blue. It's even more vivid than that one. Very interesting. So there's that. Now let's go ahead and paint in our tree. My guess is that this is, look how thick that is. Hey, we've all done this though. We've all had a tube of paint. You went to squirt it out and it was like way thicker than you wanted it to be. We've all had this before, but I don't like it. This is probably gonna take the longest out of all the trees. So, we may have to skip through some of it, but you'll get the idea. Hey, that part actually feels pretty similar to everything else, doesn't it? The stamping onto the leaves is actually easier than it was over there. Now, I think partly why this is so easy is because the background is also just as dry. Now, if you had one tube of dry and the rest of your paint was wet or, like normal consistency, then you really run into trouble. But because everything is the same level of dried out, very thick, it's not as big of a deal. It's good to know. Okay, now down here, if I can, I'm going to try to load up some color. Maybe wipe that brush off. Maybe get a different brush, just in case. I don't want to, I don't want to struggle because of the dirty brush. I'm pulling the brush hairs out of it. Wow. But anyway, we'll kind of get some of this in. Yeah, well, there it is. Pretty much the same as everything else. Not too bad. Now, let's attempt to go ahead and highlight. Let's go ahead and attempt to highlight the tree. So for that, I'm gonna wipe my brush out real good. Here we go, some yellow. This is where everything might go downhill. We'll see. It's good I have enough paint though, because it's gonna take a long time to get more paint. But right up here, let's see about just getting in some highlight. Okay, it's similar. A little more sticky, but very similar. More globby than certainly that one and that one. Well, there's definitely something to be said for not using paint that's too thick. This is the hardest one so far. I'm trying to get a little highlight on it, but just everything's so, it's like painting with glue. So if you haven't learned how to paint trees, run over to the website and grab the Techniques series on trees. There's actually a couple of them. You'll enjoy them. You can get them on download or regular DVD. Here's the detail brush. Yep, that was working pretty much just like I would expect. Just pretty standard. It doesn't seem to be too different just to get a few of these little detail brush leaves in there. Not too bad, not too bad. We should be able to paint those rocks in, I would guess. Scoop up some brown. Oh dear. Yeah, well, hey, at least it's dark. At least it's dark. Where's my little, if I can even use it? I may not be able to use this brush. I don't know. Let's scoop up some white on it. Try to get me a highlight color if I can mix. Okay, here we go. Let's see if I can. At what point does it just become a palette knife painting? I actually like the texture of those rocks. Yeah, that is not bad. Not bad. Now let me see here. This is, to me, I've learned a lot doing this. I actually think I like too thick versus too thin. If you're gonna have to make a mistake, I thought too thick would be the harder one, but I'm okay with it. That is why we're experimenting, because I don't know, because I haven't done this before. Not side by side. Now, is this thicker than I would like? Oh, big time. Big time. This is still hard compared to what it should be. It should be easy. Paint should not be fighting you. Get some of this kind of yellow green in there. Oh yeah. Not bad. And how about some white? Do you think I can? Yeah, I probably can if I glop it on thick enough. Very thick. Layering's hard like this, but not too bad. It looks okay anyways. It doesn't look too bad anyways. And then kind of try to get some flower action. And then to finish it up, if I could just get some of this kind of reddish brown, just place that right there like I did on those. Even with a little bit of our touches of yellow ochre. I see the highlights are a little muddy though. I think that just might be the paint color, or the, not color rather, but the consistency. Just not as conducive for getting bright highlights because you have to push too hard to make it stick. So that is one issue. Well, that's about it for this little experiment. Hopefully you learned something. It was interesting to see what the different paint consistencies did to the same exact scene. Don't forget to check out our website, our DVDs, and brush line. Thanks for watching. hopefully you enjoyed this video. Remember to subscribe if you're not already, and click the like button. That helps me out a lot. Stick around, watch a couple more videos, and stay inspired.